So, fantasy football recap of the tight ends drafted in the NFL draft. Kyle Pitts, he was the number one guy coming in, and he went fourth overall. This guy, he's a dynamic player. What a junior he was in Florida, and right now he goes to the Atlanta Falcons, where he could have a huge season in an offense with Julio Jones, obviously, over there, Calvin Ridley, Kyle Pitts, and Matt Ryan still, who could get the ball down the field, so it's a good landing spot for Pitts. There was rumors the Cowboys wanted to trade up and get him, but right here, the Falcons, they were set on this guy at number 4, and they got their man right now, and he's going to step in and be the starter. He could be a top 5 to top 10 tight end, no doubt about it, because we know tight end is a pretty shaky position after the first few guys in fantasy football. So Kyle Pitts, it's a great landing spot for him. He's going to make a lot of big plays, and I don't see him being a bust like a lot of tight ends we've seen over the years. Get that high pick and just don't do much. But Kyle Pitts, he runs all the routes. He makes all the plays, and he was a definite impact player in Florida. And he went as the 4th pick overall for a reason this season in the NFL draft. So Kyle Pitts, entering draft night in your fantasy football league, I would look to take him in the 7th to 9th round. Then we saw Pat Freiermuth go in the 2nd round, 23rd overall to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So this tight end class really wasn't that great. But Freiermuth, he was ranked as the 3rd best tight end coming in from Penn State. But he went 2nd round, 2nd overall tight end taken. And the Steelers, the last few seasons, they really haven't had that great of tight ends. I know Eric Ebron, he was good last year. But we'll see if he could do it again. But Freiermuth right now, I just probably wouldn't target him in fantasy drafts. The Steelers got so many weapons on that offense. Drafting Najee Harris. Obviously, you got the 3 decent receivers and Juju Smith-Schuster, Claypool you got, and Devontae Johnson. So right now, Freiermuth, it was a good move by the Steelers, but he's going to be a backup this season. And I just don't see him having fantasy value, especially in redraft fantasy leagues. Then we saw Hunter Long from Boston College come off the board and go to the Miami Dolphins, was the junior in the 3rd round, 18th pick over there. So Hunter Long, he's going to be behind in this one. A couple players on the depth chart in Miami. And we saw last season Tua Tagovailoa come in, and he just didn't do much for that offense, in my opinion. He slowed the offense down. Mike Kasich, he had a couple big games last season. And Hunter Long, he's going to be a backup as well, like I mentioned, like Pat Freiermuth. These guys, they're just not going to have redraft value. And these tight ends, not many were taken in this NFL draft this season. So Hunter Long, he's not going to be on the redraft radar in fantasy leagues or dynasty or keeper right now, unless something happens to Kasich. Then we saw Tommy Tremble, who was ranked the number 2 tight end coming into the draft from Notre Dame, and he went to the Panthers. And I obviously could see Tommy Tremble having more of an impact than these other guys, because the Panthers, they don't really have receivers who can make plays at the tight end position. More blocking tight ends they have. And this team, they're trying to turn the new leaf to a different type of offense after going from Teddy Bridgewater to Sam Darnold in the offseason here. So Tommy Tremble, he's a player I probably would target in the later rounds and take a flyer on compared to these other tight ends. These guys are more blockers and are going to be backups. But Tommy Tremble, I definitely could see become a starter here as the season goes on for the Panthers, because they just don't have much depth. And he's another weapon that can help Sam Darnold out in the Panthers. And the 5th tight end taken off the board in this one in the NFL draft was Trey Mckinney, 3rd round, 34th pick, going to the Chargers from Georgia. And he's a guy they probably reached on compared to the other ranked tight ends ahead of him. But right here, we saw in the offseason the Chargers lose Hunter Henry. And I think McKinney, he could possibly have some fantasy value. But he's a guy that'll probably go undrafted, entering your fantasy football season this year. But he's a guy to definitely keep an eye on with Hunter Henry gone. And this Charger team trying to just find weapons once again this season for Justin Herbert. So those were the few tight ends drafted in the NFL draft. And we'll see if any of these guys have fantasy value entering the 2021 season.